Hello, welcome back to Gardens of the Moon Abridged, a series where we go over the first book in Malazan Book of the Fallen, Gardens of the Moon, and summarize and analyze each chapter. We are now on chapter 3. It's a bit of a shorter chapter, but we'll have some important information that we learn. So yeah, let's get right into the chapter. The chapter opens away from Pale's ruins. We are following Ganos Paran, who is in transit, moving deeper into Genebacus under imperial authority. It's been 2 years since the Itzko Khan massacre when we last saw Paran. He's now a captain, which is a very high rank in the Malazan military. What should feel like advancement instead carries an undertone of quiet threat. Paran is being used, though he does not yet fully grasp how. Paran meets Topper, a senior agent of the Claw. The conversation is framed as routine instruction, but beneath it lies something colder. Paran is informed that he is to take command of Whiskey Jack's squad, the Bridge Burners, and he is to escort them onward to Darujistan, the Empire's next target. And that Sari, the girl Paran has been hunting since Itzko Khan, is embedded within them. Topper hints, but never outright stating, that Sari has corrupted the Bridge Burners, and perhaps even Dujak's entire army. The implication is clear. This unit is no longer merely dangerous. It is politically contaminated. Paran understands the surface logic, yet he does not yet see the deeper design. Paran learns he'll be transported by the Moranth, using their flying corals. This is presented as efficiency. It reads as something else. The Empire relying on forces it does not fully control, and alliances of convenience layered atop conquest. The Moranth are present but distant. They are not integrated into the Empire, but merely adjacent to it. The scene shifts back to Pale. The city is wounded, but still standing. It is now under Malazan occupation. We once again see Tattersall, who's going to meet Bellerdan, the Thelaman Toblakai. He is grieving his lover Nightchill and carrying a sack of her body parts. His grief is heavy, ancient, and culturally distinct. Tattersall tells him Taishran is a traitor, but Bellerdan rejects this rumor. Bellerdan speaks of raising Nightchill's barrow on the Rivi Plain and honoring her in a way the Empire never could. Tattersall asks to cast a protective sealing spell on the remains, to which Bellerdan gives his permission. This moment slows the chapter and recenters loss as something personal, not tactical. We shift to the Bridge Burners. We see Whiskey Jack, Kalam, and Quick Ben. Their conversation circles familiar ground, but with increased urgency. They believe the Empress is trying to eliminate them, and that Pale is not a mistake, but a coal. They revisit the mystery of Sari, the garroting of an officer, and the idea that someone inside the army is shaping the events. They talk about Hairlock and how he's no longer theoretical, but a problem they intend to use. This is the first time their response shifts from endurance to resistance. They speak openly of turning the game. Fiddler and Sari then arrive, and they all leave to meet their new captain. We once again shift back to Tattersall, who is with Taishran. Tattersall performs a Deck of Dragons reading for Taishran. This is not a spectacle. It is a confrontation disguised as ritual. The reading opens a path to ascendant attention, draws in unaligned forces, and unsettles even the High Mage. Tattersall demonstrates control, insight, and a refusal to soften what she sees. The spinning coin appears again. Chance is not background noise anymore. It is shaping outcomes. After the reading, Tattersall sends a private message to Whiskey Jack. This is quite decisive alignment. We go back to Pran, who has reached Pale, and encounters Talk the Younger, a Claw agent. Talk does not threaten, but he warns Pran. He tells him that Whiskey Jack is beloved by the soldiers. Dujek One-Arm commands loyalty that eclipses imperial decree, and that testing loyalty would be catastrophic. He talks about Hood kidnapping Dasim Ultor's daughter, which potentially resulted in Dasim's death, bringing ruin to the Malazan Empire. He also reveals his own Clawmaster was recently assassinated, and that the Claw is not unified, and something is rotting inside the Empire's enforcement arm. Talk spends time with the Second Army and has grown fond of Dujek and the Bridge Burners. Pran listens, but he does not yet understand the price of ignoring this warning. Pran then goes to meet the Bridge Burners. Captain Pran meets Corporal Picker and Sergeant Ansey, and some more of the Bridge Burners. They are blunt, cynical, and entirely unimpressed by his rank. They speak openly about officer mortality, betrayal as an occupational hazard, and survival as kind of a joke. Pran realizes authority here is earned, not assigned, and command is a liability. The Bridge Burners do not fear death. They expect it. Pran heads towards the barracks. While he was heading there, he is attacked. The attack is sudden, intimate, and efficient. Sari appears, or rather, Cotillion does. Pran is then stabbed, cleanly, professionally, and without anger. As he collapses, he hears the faint ringing of a spinning coin. He dies alone in an alley. No witness intervenes, and no last stand is offered. Pran's death opens a new scene. Shadowthrone and Cotillion speak openly. They confirm this is part of a long-running vengeance against Lysine. They are not improvising, they are adjusting. They know that something has entered the Shadow Warren, uninvited and unknown. The tone is not alarmed, it is intrigued. They agree that this will draw others into the game, and that is acceptable. The coin keeps spinning. In the chapter, it closes without resolution. Pran is dead. The Bridge Burners drink, gamble, and wait, and the Empire moves forward, unaware or unwilling to see that the rules have already changed. Yes, now we can talk about some themes and takeaways. The first theme is promotion as execution. What appears to be advancement in the Malazan Empire is often a more elegant form of removal. Pran's promotion to captain and his assignment to the Bridge Burners is framed as trust, but the surrounding context reveals it as delivery mechanism. He is sent into a unit already suspected, already marked, and already surrounded by political danger. The Empire does not always kill its problems directly. It places them where death is likely, deniable, and convenient. This reframes rank not as protection, but as exposure. Authority draws attention, and intention invites knives. Next theme is loyalty as threat. Whiskey Jack and Dujek are not dangerous because they plot rebellion. They are dangerous because they do not need to. Their soldiers would follow them without orders, without justification and without hesitation. That kind of loyalty exists outside institutional control and therefore cannot be tolerated indefinitely. The Empire's fear is not mutiny, but alternative legitimacy. A commander loved by his soldiers represents a parallel center of gravity. Pale and the losses that followed begin to look less like tactical failure and more like deliberate erosion of that loyalty. Next, institutions rot from within. The Claw, the Empire's primary instrument of internal control, is revealed to be fractured and compromised. Talk's quiet warning to Pran, coupled with the murder of his own Clawmaster, suggests that even the Watchers are being watched and eliminated. This internal decay mirrors the Empire's outward expansion. The further Malaz spreads, the thinner its authority becomes. Control mechanisms no longer guarantee safety. They generate paranoia instead. Next, chance enters the field. Apon's influence continues to surface not as spectacle, but as disturbance. The spinning coin does not overturn plans. It destabilizes them. Outcomes wobble. Certainties erode, and characters sense uncertainty before they understand it. This is not randomness for its own sake. Chance becomes a weapon precisely because everyone else believes they are still in control. Gods of order and strategy suddenly find themselves reacting instead of directing. Next, death without meaning, yet. Pran's assassination is brutally anticlimactic. There's no heroic resistance, no grand revelation, no justice. He dies alone, efficiently and without witness. This refusal to grant meaning is intentional. In Malazan, death does not automatically confer importance. Meaning accumulates later, through consequence, reaction, and memory. Pran's death is not the end of his story, but it is the end of his innocence. Now we'll go on to a big picture takeaway. Chapter 3 completes the transition begun in Chapter 2. The story moves from conquest to manipulation. Cities fall, but the real conflict is over influence and loyalty. From strategy to survival, long-term plans crumble under hidden knives and divine interference. And from armies to pieces, individuals matter not for who they are, but where they sit on the board. Pale itself fades into the background. Its burning streets and shattered walls become normalized. What lingers instead is what Pale revealed, that the Empire is willing to sacrifice its best soldiers, its most loyal commanders, and even its own internal enforcers to maintain the illusion of control. Pran's death crystallizes this truth. He is not killed because he failed. He is killed because he is useful. His removal advances multiple agendas at once, and that efficiency is precisely the problem. By the chapter's end, the reader understands something the characters only begin to suspect. The game is no longer being played by one side, on one board, with known rules. The gods are no longer distant. The Empire is no longer unified. And survival now requires accepting that certainty itself is a liability. Pale was the warning, and Pran is the proof. Finally, we'll talk about the big board and how pieces are introduced or repositioned. Ganos Pran, the sacrificial piece. He's officially promoted to captain and assigned to the bridge burners. He's unofficially delivered into a politically compromised unit, active divine interference, and overlapping assassination plots. He is killed by Cotillion, acting through Sari, and leaves the board physically, but not narratively. At the end of the chapter, he is removed as a mortal agent, elevated as a node of consequence, and his fate triggers divine escalation. Pran is the first clear example that the Empire does not need you to fail in order to destroy you. Whiskey Jack, the gravity well. He is absent for much of the chapter, yet constantly referenced. He is identified by Claw Intelligence, the Bridge Burners, and the Imperial Command as dangerously influential. Soldiers follow him instinctively. His past command history has been deliberately erased from Imperial records. He's an unofficial leader, a symbolic threat, and an anchor point for loyalty beyond the Empire. Whiskey Jack's power is no longer military, it is relational, and that makes him harder to kill. Dujek One Arm, the commander on a fault line. His authority remains intact, but barely. His soldiers would follow him anywhere, a fact that alarms the Claw. He is caught between loyalty to the Empire and loyalty to his soldiers. He is respected, watched, and increasingly isolated. Dujek represents a limit the Empire is approaching, but has not yet crossed. Yet. Tattersall, a quiet intermediary. She operates behind the scenes. She reads the deck, communicates with Whiskey Jack, and withholds information from Tayshrin. Her message to Whiskey Jack subtly alters the flow of events. She is informed, compromised, and increasingly autonomous. Tattersall has become a connector, linking soldiers, sorcery, and gods without fully serving any of them. Tayshrin, the centralizing force. He maintains formal control of Pale and relies on proximity to the Empress for authority. He knows something is wrong and something is moving, but does not yet know how much he is being misled. He is powerful, constrained, and vulnerable to misinformation. Tayshrin's strength is institutional, which makes him brittle. Topper, the messenger of unease. He has a brief appearance, but outsized importance. He signals the Claw fragmentation and internal assassinations. His warnings to Pran are careful, incomplete, and personal. He is a survivor, an observer, and not fully aligned with his own organization. The Claw is no longer a single blade. It is a bundle of knives pointed inward. Talk the Younger, the honest spy. He meets Pran openly, without menace, and warns him that soldiers' loyalty has limits, and pushing too hard will break the army. He admits that his own Claw Master was assassinated, and is a marginal insider and a reluctant truth-teller. Talk represents the human cost of surveillance culture. He's informed, expendable, and tired. Sorry, the knife. She acts without hesitation, kills Pran efficiently and impersonally, and is no longer just suspicious, now confirmed as a divine instrument. She is a weapon, a sleeper agent, and a catalyst. Sari transformed from mystery to threat realized. The question is no longer who she is, but how long she'll be allowed to remain. Cotillion, the active hand. He appears directly, no intermediaries. He confirms a long-running vendetta against the Empire, and Pran's death was intentional, not opportunistic. He acknowledges that something else has entered Shadow, and is engaged, reactive, and no longer merely observing. He steps onto the board as a player, not a rumor. Shadow Throne, the strategist of chaos. He converses with Cotillion as an equal and treats events as moves within a much older game. He identifies Pale as a convergence point, not an endpoint, and is an architect, amused, and adapting to new interference. Even the gods are no longer confident they control the board. Opan, the unstable variable. Their influence continues indirectly, echoed in the spinning coin, and felt in disrupted outcomes. Their presence annoys Shadow Throne, and they are unaligned, destabilizing, and increasingly intrusive. Chance is no longer background noise. It is a weaponized uncertainty. And finally, Pale, the after image. It is no longer the focus, but now a reference point for loss, for betrayal, and for escalation. It is a historical marker and a warning sign, and the origin of fractures. And that is the end of our video for chapter 3. We learned a lot in this chapter, and I look forward to doing the video for the next chapter. Feel free to leave any comments if you have any questions or just comments in general, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks.